What is up, everyone? Vex30 here, coming at you with a new champion chat today. Today we are going to be talking about your boy, the one and only, the one who's been trying to find his way in the meta but really can't, Jenos. Now, in patch 2.01, Jenos had some buffs. His main legendary in competitive at higher levels has always been Luminary. But what they did is take Celestial Touch out of the game, which gave somebody 10% of their maximum health whenever you heal them, and put it into his base kit but reduced it to 5%. Now, we're going to be talking about him today. In this champion chat, the way it works is this first part is we're going to be over the champion. We're going to go over his abilities. We'll go over his changes. We'll go over decks. We're going to go over anything we can about the champion, just factual stuff, deck stuff, or whatever. And then the second part will be moving towards a part where I just sit here and I talk about what I think about Jenos, what he needs done to him, why he's not meta, why he is meta. Just anything I could talk about the champion, I'm going to in the second part. So let's jump right into this. No more wasting time. So Jenos. Jenos is a fairly newer support. He's had some time and some spotlight in the meta, but recently he's really fallen off. He's a very niche support, and he can be used only in certain comps. He has a base health of 2200, like most supports. Skins, I mean, I always look at the skins for a second. He has some of the better skins in the game. Like, Remix is alright. I like it. It's a little blocky, but I kind of like it like that. X-Arc is, like, actually my favorite. Soul Eater, I mean, what can go wrong with that one? And the rest are just reskins and face masks. But let's talk about his abilities and what changed about him. So in 2.01, they reduced all champions to 3 legendaries. A lot of lower to mid-tier players use Celestial Touch quite often as his main legendary. Now, it can be good and it can have a higher healing output with double tank, but the issue is you are missing that 15% extra damage on your allies, and that damage makes up for that extra bonus healing you will give out when it comes to being Jenos. When it comes to Celestial Touch, what it really does is it helps your teammates out of combat, but it really only helps the tanks. I'll talk about this in the opinion portion, but I'll touch on it now. One of Jenos' biggest issues is healing up somebody fast. He doesn't have that chance. Your team has to be very mobile to get out of combat, use your heal to help them heal up quicker, and then get back in. A slow-moving team, Jenos doesn't work very well, but I'll get more into that later. Jenos' weapon is very standard. It's like a submachine gun almost. I would consider close to a submachine gun. Does a decent bit of damage. Isn't bad, especially when you're hitting headshots. His heal, it applies a mark on a target through walls, through anything, and heals allies for 5% maximum health and 2200 additional health every second for 10 seconds. That 5% max health came from Celestial Touch, but was halved. Now, I think that was a good thing, but we'll go into that later. We'll talk about that 5% and why it's a good / bad thing. Stellar Wind, recently that got a nerf in like 6 patches ago that added an eternal cooldown to it. So this ability is still good, but it doesn't feel great. Void Grip is pretty nice to lift flankers out of their movement abilities, so on and so forth. His ultimate is a giant tube that you shoot out like a big old laser and you just one-shot somebody that has 2400 or less health. It's actually really fun to use. And if you learn how to use it, you will be the best Jenos. But let's talk about his legendaries. His number 1, Luminary. Any ally affected with your Astro Mark now deals 15% more weapon damage. This legendary is huge. Especially for your teammates. Of course, you're missing a little bit of healing, at least before this patch with not running Celestial. But the amount of damage you are giving to your allies, and with the build I'm going to show you, you can mark 3 allies at once. It's amazing. It's awesome. You are giving 45% extra damage at one point. You're almost not doubling your team's damage, but you're just boosting it. You're almost 50% extra damage to your team. Next is Binary Star. Now this one's the only other one that I think is semi-viable. I wouldn't say competitively, but it's really fun to play. Star Splitter now deals 360 damage over 0.4 seconds. Jenos turns into Leanne, even though his shots have bloom on them. If you ever go into the shooting range and shoot Jenos' shots and hold your mouse still and shoot, it's really interesting. Go test that for yourself. Power of the Cosmium, it's an interesting idea, but it doesn't really work late game. Since Resilience is 250, it's really easy to buy Resi, get that online, and it's okay early, but it falls off super hard late game. Like Luminary doesn't. let's talk about builds. First one. This is the end-all be-all Jenos build with one very small variation to it. Boom. You need Retrograde, Astral Cycle 5. These two help you keep consistent 3 people with, I think, Chronos 1 or 2. I think it's Chronos 2 marked at all times. Jenos is a super mobile character and safe champion. There's really no reason to be running higher relativity. Light years. You're going to find an issue on some maps, any map really, even Bright Marsh Jag, close maps, you will find an issue trying to reach allies that are across the map and flankers. This card is huge for Jenos. Heavenly Pool, I used to run Reveal for 1 second to help me line up my ultimates. Like I tag them once, see where their movement is, and then ult. But this card is the second best to that since that was removed. Increasing your grip range really does help. That 10%, you will notice a big difference, especially if you weren't running it before. Now, the variation I was talking about is this build here. You can run Relativity 2. If you want more self-sustain, take 1 out of Astral Cycle. I think Light Years 3, or 1 out of Light Years 3. I would probably say Light Years. Certain maps, you kind of want the Light Years 3, but you can go with 20% and put yourself a little bit up further. But if you want to run Relativity 2, which if you are decent with Jenos, you really don't need it because you'll be in a good position. You'll be fine. This build, I'll show you and I'll let you figure out what it's used for. It's one of those builds that's kind of cool, but you're going to have to figure this one out. Maps that you can think of high ground positions with this card. It's pretty interesting, pretty nice. And Binary Star, this is my brawler build. This is like my off support build. If I'm running Binary Star and I want to frag, I wouldn't use this in competitive. I use this in casual and stuff. It's really fun. It's super brawly. It's nice. And let's talk about his important cards really quick and why they're important. These 5 I lined up. These are the important ones. And then we're going to talk about a theory craft really quick right after this. Retrograde, you need that max. You need to get the much cooldown as you can so you can mark as many people as you can. It's crucial along with Astral Cycle. 2.5 seconds. These two combined make Jenos a decent champion. And then Light Years, you have to run it at 3. You will see so many issues with not being able to reach. Heavenly Pool's nice, Relativity is nice, but these 3 are your core cards, to be honest. Retrograde, Light Years, and Astral Cycle. If you don't want self-sustain, all supports should have a self-sustain card. You need it. And your 1-point card can be variant. Now, the only other build I was thinking of testing is something with Falling Star. Now, this is something I might do a video on testing, might not. But this card is interesting to me. It kind of piques my interest. I'm gonna make a build with it at some point and maybe do a video on it. It's an interesting idea, but it has to be. You have to be smart with your void grips. It's kind of that simple. But this is it for the builds and talking about Jenos. Let's get right into the part where we talk about Jenos and really give our opinions and what we think Jenos needs, where he's at right now, what he doesn't need, buffs, nerfs, or whatever it is I want to talk about. So I will see you there. So let's talk about Jenos. He is one of those champions that has been in and out and in and out of the meta. But right now, he is out. He is a niche champion that can be used in certain comps. Take a triple damage comp, single tank, single support. Jenos can be used really well to buff those damages, especially when they're super mobile. I touched on this in the first part, but one major thing I want to talk about with Jenos is what he is good for. I don't think Jenos is meta. I don't think he's very viable in general, but I think he is niche. I think he has his specific use cases. So what makes him good? Jenos is good at keeping people consistently, slowly, but consistently sustained while buffing their damage and helping them in duels. If you have a champion like Eevee and Droxus, Buck, Maeve, any flanker in the game, or duelist specialist like a DPS that's good at dueling, like say Cassie, any DPS that can duel well, or even a high DPS, it can be good. Like a Bomb King, you put it on Bomb King and he is fragging everybody. But his issue with his heal compared to other supports is when, say, a Bomb King just wins the duel or gets low, moves out of combat, he's just sitting there ticking up. He can't get in that fight instantly. The other supports can just instantly heal somebody up and get them back in the fight. That's the difference with Jenos' heal. It's very slow. It helps in duels. It's consistent, but it is slow. Now, I think hi-rez does know that. I believe they have noticed that and they know his problem. That's why they got rid of Celestial Touch and put it in his base kit, which was a good change. But they only made it 5%. Now, some people are probably like, why is it only 5? Jenos is on the verge of being broken. Honestly, he is insane. He is an easy heal. His ultimate is his skill cap. If you are good with his ultimate, you are at the peak of Jenos. Rotating your heals too. Constantly knowing who is the next heal target and whose is about to run out constantly through the whole game will make you the best Jenos. You will get the most efficient heals, and Jenos is all about efficiency. But hi-rez's change to Jenos was good. But again, you can't make that 10% plus Luminary. If you're giving him 10% maximum health, plus his ticking heal, plus Luminary, Jenos is on the verge of just being busted. 5% was good. 10% would actually make him meta. I don't know if he would be broken though. That's the thing. He would be close though. I would like honestly, 10% would have been good, but it would have been close to broken. So good change on hi-rez, but he still has that issue. Is 5% max health besides on tanky tanks like a Nara is not enough to burst heal somebody out of combat, which I'm okay with. I'm okay with Jenos being a niche healer. Here's the thing about Paladins. Anything can be used as anything. Not true, but there's so many different ways to play a certain champion, a certain class, and it's awesome. Jenos fills a niche in the game though. There's one way to play him as a main support. You can heal double tank, of course, but you're going to be missing your bonus damage. But competitively, the best, most efficient way to run him is with Luminary. In 3 DPS comps, you want the max amount of damage you can with him. And that's where he fits. He fits in high DPS comps and a super mobile. And there are times where he is played. Even if we're moving towards a sustain meta and a double support meta, he will find uses as well. Jenos is in double support comp. Having a second support with Jenos to supplement that healing, plus the 15% extra damage he's marking. Say you have a Pip, right? A Catalyst Pip that's running a hybrid build, okay? He has Reload in his deck to heal allies, and he's more of a backline Pip. He's poking, you know, but he is also constantly healing people. Pip can be the one who tops somebody off out of combat quickly, while Jenos is slowly sustaining the duels. This is another place where Jenos fits. So there is a chance that you might see him in the upcoming metas because of that reason. Because double support in a meta where caught is not as relevant. Not caught, sorry. Early caught. As in last patch, how we had 90% caughts at the first point. That hurt all supports, of course. But sustain meta is, I believe, here and is coming back. You're going to see a lot of double supports, triple tanks, triple supports. It's something I wanted to play with, is double tank, triple support. But nonetheless, besides the point. But Jenos does fit a role. He's not just bad, he's decent. He fits a role, and I'm okay with that. He doesn't need buffed. I think he's okay where he is, and you let the meta form. You don't force the meta. You don't force him into meta. That's what I hate. I hate when game companies force something in the meta. Like, take this and just go. Get in the meta. Get in there. Just super buffs them. Why? Just give them small little buffs like they did. Gave him 5% and said, okay, let's see where you go from here. Let the meta develop and say, okay, so he fits this role. What can we do to help him fit more roles? That's the thing. Take it slow, especially with the supports in a champion like this. Take it slow. Don't make it anything drastic and see what happens. I do like hi-rez's approach to balancing supports right now. I think supports are in a very good spot. Now, that being it's a sustain meta, possibly. Of course they're in a good spot. But none of them are broken. That's the thing. It's sustain meta, but no supports are really first pick, first bannable. That's the thing. I think supports are in a very good balanced spot. And if anything, you balance other characters. Like say you nerf tanks a little bit. I think that's the next step. You nerf tanks, and that's going to hurt the sustain because tanks are less tankier. So like tanks have to be tanky and supports have to heal for a sustain meta to work. That's just how it is. Like take Nando's Formidable. That's going to be a part of the sustain meta. Makoa, they just gave him a card that increases his healing when below 50%. That's going to help in sustain meta. Inara, she receives 40% extra healing when her right clicks up, I believe. Yeah, 40% increased healing and 30% damage reduction. Tanks perpetuate the sustain meta. Now, I like sustain meta more than burst meta, but I don't think it's it's not fun. It's not a fun meta. Now, I'm not saying we are 100% in a sustain meta. I think we are moving towards it slowly. But the tanks perpetuate the sustain meta. And tanks will need a nerf before anything. Now, this goes back to Jenos. If tanks get that nerf, he will be meta. Because when tanks get a nerf, DPS will become more priority. 3 DPS comps will come back. Single tank Barrack, Leanne, Andro, Eevee, Jenos. That could be a comp. But it's not going to happen while tanks are extremely tanky, supports do a lot of healing, and DPS do good damage. There's an obvious trend right now when it comes to champions and balance. Tanks, honestly, I think their biggest issue is they receive too much healing. Like Inara, nerf, just get rid of the extra healing on right click. Honestly, that'll balance her. I've been saying this for a while. Get rid of bonus healing below this much health. That'll hurt sustain meta. Get rid of those cards altogether. That'll hurt the sustain meta. Now, you can let this meta play out for like 6 months. That's fine. These are just ideas for the future. Jenos will have a place soon. After sustain meta, always comes like a triple DPS meta. It's like a cycle. You have triple DPS, you go triple DPS meta, double tank, double DPS. Those two metas are like, can be intermingled. Then you have a high burst or a high sustain, and then the opposite. It's a weird cycle that happens in this game I've seen so far. But Jenos will always find his place. He's a good champion. I don't like auto-aim heals that go through walls, of course. I think it's not very conducive to skill, but he is fun. He's a great ultimate, great mobility, and it's really fun learning the intricacies when it comes to heal rotations and ult usage. So I love Jenos, and I really want to see him played. Jenos, let's see you back in the meta soon, buddy, alright? Alright. That is it for my opinion portion of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I really do love these champion chats because I love giving my opinion. I love hearing what you think about them. I think the second part is the funnest for me. Just being able to, like, I'm just sitting here staring at my voice recorder while talking. And I'm just thinking as I talk, and I'm like, this came to my head, this came to my head, this goes back with this. I don't write scripts for these. I don't like writing scripts for champion chats. Unscripted, the most raw I can, is the best way to do it, in my opinion. At least for this series. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I also hope you enjoy your day, night, evening, morning, dawn, dusk, or whatever it is where you live. And I will see you in the next one. Later. And a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters, Captain Splashclaw, Joseph Lavsa, and Joshua Blanchflower, and all others. Thank you so much.